Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with today, wrapping it up with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Lauren. Ben Jordan is an electronic artist that stands ahead of the pack for me, not only because of his compositions, but also because he plays guitar, bass, drums, and piano. We're going to be looking at the band, or the artist, the group, the Flashbulb. We do have a little 2-minute showcase here of some improvised MIDI guitar that's going to show off some of Ben's techniques, and then we're going to check out an entire album's worth of music. Apparently it is one song with 17 movements to it. Let's check out this little video here to showcase how Ben goes about creating music, though.
Hi, I'm the Flashbulb, and this is improvised MIDI guitar.
So just building samples on the fly based on palm muted playing in order to get a percussive tone. I do want to point out that this video is 15 years old. It reminds me of groups like Battles, while also kind of representing what the modern landscape of live looping musicians looks like, but way ahead of the curve. Yeah. Pretty cool ideas. All right. I'm going to flip over to Spotify here. That's very interesting. Like I said, it's kind of more common today to see people doing live loop stuff, starting from scratch, building your loops, and then putting a melody on top of it. But like I said, 15 years ago, I'm not too sure. I mean, that would be 2010 that this video came out, which I assume, yeah, based on the description here, it doesn't look like this was the first thing he had ever done. So he had been doing this sort of live looped, doing everything on a MIDI guitar idea for at least a couple of years now. Definitely ahead of the curve, I think. The song ended up being cool. I don't really have much to add to it other than that. It has a nice spacey vibe to a lot of it. But, you know, it's just a short little, I guess, a display, a demonstration of this technique. But here we're going to get into the song Arboreal. Like I said, there's 17 movements here. It's like 40, 50, that's like 57, 58 minutes or something like that. We got a lot of music ahead of us, so let's get into it. We're going to listen to it I believe all of it's just consistent. So we're not going to have any breaks here. I'm just going to listen to the full 50 so some odd minutes of music straight. I'll give my thoughts through it, and then I'll have some final thoughts at the end. Let's kick it. Nice little bit of polyrhythm here, or polyrhythm here. Now, I'm just going to assume that this isn't live looped then. Kind of makes me curious why I was requested to check out the demonstration video. This drum part is new, and I'm gonna wager that's a real piano. It doesn't have to be, but the requester also mentioned that this person plays piano and drums and bass, which already, that right there, it's generally gonna rule out live looping. That's not to say that you couldn't live loop multiple instruments. I've seen people do that as well, which is pretty impressive. I like the variety of the percussive tones, but so far this song isn't grabbing me. I don't view this as one piece. this is not a second movement, this is a second song. Much like track 1, this is a beautiful atmosphere here. Uplifting melody. To me though, once again, it's just sort of, it's missing that thing that grabs me though. It's well done, the production sounds solid, it's just, it's missing the hooks, it's missing that X factor thing to elevate it. And see, like a section like this, I'm just not digging. The melody's not strong enough, and this single beat with the drone is not grabbing me at all. I think it's doing a great job at creating atmosphere. If that's your jam, this is a solid track. I can see all three of these pieces so far working as background music though, for a multimedia piece. They're really great at setting a mood. I'm having a tough time appreciating them as a standalone, isolated idea. Nothing I've heard so far really grabs my attention. There is an interesting playfulness here though, with the driving percussion versus the laid-back, ethereal instrumentation. See, now the drums, they still have a driving rhythm to them, but at least they've lightened up timbre-wise. but this melody just, it's what was supported by the last section too. It just, maybe it's a me thing. I've said this in the past, I need melody. And these tracks so far have been more ambient than anything else. A little bit of driving energy, rhythmically driving, but not melodically driven. This is going to be subjective too. I'm not a big fan of the constantly varying volume. It's an interesting texture, but for me entirely too distracting. So I'm gonna finish out the reaction simply because I'm here, doing it, it's paid for, whatever. But this is not a single track. This is a full album with 17 distinct tracks on it. Digging the drumming though. Nice little solo here in the middle. Best song of the album so far. I like this gentle little, almost clean electric guitar sound over here. The drumming, I'm a big fan of. That melody we had was pretty cool. The beginning was a little rough, and this ending sounds like it's going to be in that same area. Just kind of wish something else would happen. And it is loops, so this isn't, I mean, it's just a melodic loop right here. I wish it were a bit more linear, but I understand that's probably not something we're going to get given the style of music that we're listening to and particularly the creation process of it. But I do think this track has had the most amount of moments that I've enjoyed. I really would have liked that classic piano sound, to the acoustic piano sound. dang, the acoustic guitar sound to have continued on, built something else around it or off of it, transitioned the percussive element into the drums, some sort of connection, I think would really sell me on this. Otherwise, the lack of hard stops between tracks is a novelty. It's a gimmick of sorts, as none of the music is actually tied together. There's just no moments of silence on the album. Here's another thing, we're about a minute in. This is pretty typical. Most of the tracks have had a 1 to 1.5 minute intro, which is just chord laying out and drum beat laying down. It's about building the foundation. That's a long time in all of these songs, a third of the track to build foundation. If the songs were longer, more of a slow burn, I think it could work. But I suppose on the other side of things, most of these tracks are just foundation and melodic lead loop. So I guess you really don't have a choice. You gotta fill that time somewhere. If you put the melodic lead in, well, now you don't have your contrast. So interesting glitched percussive stuff. What style of drum beat is this? Because my brain keeps jumping back and forth between a drum and bass beat and a break beat. And obviously I need a little more education in the realm of electronic drum patterns. There's certainly a bit of a pattern to the writing that I'm beginning to see though. Oftentimes we'll have foundation with lead, a stripped down version of the full sound, and then a return to the full sound with some slight sonic variation to it. Here we saw the stripped down version having no drums in it, but prior we've just returned back to the no melody section, we've returned to no exterior sound versions. I definitely want more of that. Set up all your loops and give me a lead line on top of it. There's certainly quite a bit of sonic variation on the album as well. Aside from tracks 1 and 2, which had a very similar vibe to them, most of these tracks have been rather distinct within their sonic palette, what kind of sounds are being used, which is kind of something I expect in the realms of synthesizers or synthesized instruments, or I guess in this case, modified acoustic instrumentation. a bit ominous. A nice change of pace for the album. Having the hard disk needle sounds and some of the percussion is pretty cool. I doubt that's exactly the sample, but that's what it reminds me of. Bit of a little bit. There's a little bit of synthwave in here, which is cool, but it's not overpowering. Ooh, interesting note choice there. That instability would have been a neat segue, and yet it almost feels like an accident now. It probably wasn't. It was left in a release that I assume had multiple takes on track, so it was purposeful, but it doesn't really fit any of what the song did. Came out of left field there. I don't know. That was a bizarre choice. So coming off of the reins of the last ominous track, we're looking at one filled with dread here. Yeah. Hopeful resolution. Yeah, there are dreadful moments, but I would not call this song dreadful. Nice crossfade there. A little bit of jazziness in there. It was just for a moment, too. Okay, that was interesting. This is an interesting moment. There is a melody here, but it's so quiet. It's very peaceful and serene, which kind of pulls me out of the music. Puts me into more of a meditative state. Once again, kind of being background to something else, which I think a lot of this album does a really great job of being, maybe not intentionally, but I think functionally how a lot of people might listen to this is while doing something else. There's a lot of ambient quasi-minimalism going on. There's usually only 2 to 3 distinct ideas happening at any time. Sometimes there's more than that number of instruments at play, but many instruments are working together on a single idea. I mean, like this, chords and percussion. We do have a lead percussive line here. If you decide to isolate the old beats from this new bouncing idea, that you get 3 lines that way. Once again, I wonder if I'm missing context too. I have no idea what the electronic scene was looking like in 2010. It could very well be no different than me listening to some incredibly creative bands from 20, 30 years ago where the music they were writing is now kind of common, ahead of their time when they were fresh, but very similar to stuff that's come out since. And I wouldn't wonder, or wouldn't surprise me if there is some combination of all of this. The more minimalistic approach to things, my disconnect from this genre, and well, maybe even the process of creating it, which I'm not privy to. I have seen how this person works, but I'm not seeing how these songs in particular are being made. And all of this might just be obscuring context for me. Is this all good? 100%. I have not really many complaints about it. The production is solid. These percussive melodies are infectious. And they do a great job of capturing atmosphere. That might be all that these things need to do. It's just I'm not the target audience for that. And I might be missing context to it. To me, this is a solid 5 or 6 out of 10. It is good, but I don't know that I'm going to remember much of this after I'm finished with the video. There's nothing that's really stood out to me as phenomenal. See something else? I'm imagining these drums to be programs. If they're not, and much like the MIDI guitar, these are all played for real, that might be a bit more impressive to me, but I have a tough time picturing that, given how not normal these drum sounds are. This, absolutely, I can picture how this is played. I know what parts of the kit each of these sounds are. I can visualize someone playing this. But the drum and bass stuff, I have no way of understanding the complexity of that if it's played. To me, it sounds programmed, which means the performative appreciation of this album is sort of stripped out of it, except for times like this where I'm really enjoying the drum work here, especially the linearity of it while still keeping the rhythm and beats. The harmonica is a nice touch here though. At least I think it's a harmonica. It's quiet and off to the side. Parts of me starts thinking it's brass though, so no, that's a harmonica. This is only the second track here to have vocals, right? These are modified too. The first ones weren't? I don't remember them being modified. But these are pitch shifted. The general haziness to all of this, I think it's that organ tone that's just a bit more compressed than a lot of the instruments have been. Once again, creating a very distinct feeling and vibe. It's quite impressive, I find, 11 tracks in, that a lot of these songs have their own identity to them, while not feeling separated from the rest. It all feels like one, cohesive set of music. Distinct tracks, but they're all within the same realm of sounds, and yet despite that still have their individuality. The requester had mentioned that they play the guitar and the drums and the piano. I was not expecting something like this. I kind of figured a jack of all trades, master of none. But the guitar skills on point. We saw that in the demonstration video. The drum skills are ridiculous though. Definitely more expressive and complex of a style of drum playing than you typically see anywhere in palatable sounding musics like this, whether it is mainstream rock or, speaking of some guitar chops, definitely is inspired by jazz drummers too. Particularly this song tells me that. Might be my favorite track on the album, and I don't know if that's the composition itself or the fact that it's generally not digital sounding. We did have that organ in there. Might be an electric organ, but you know, most of the instruments there, some guitar, drums, drum kit, like not digital drums. So yeah, dude, the more that we get away from the looped electronic stuff, I think I'm enjoying this album more. Beautiful. Sort of a watery 3/4. I think a lot of that comes from the chord progression. Something about it makes me think of Underwater. The bass tone also. Although that new higher part. Bells? Is that what that is? That makes me think of Air. It's called The Great Pumpkin Tapes. I don't think it has anything to do with the beach, but that's what I'm getting out of this. It's the division between the sky and the sea. This is Christmas already. Shakers and bells. Giving me Christmas vibes. Okay. That first chord did not do it any favors, but it's distancing itself from a Christmassy sound now as we get away from nostalgia riddled chord progressions. Alright, not get away, avoid them entirely. Also, I'm pretty sure these are handbells too, but they're layered with some sort of clanging metal. I don't know what instrument that could be. Yeah, you hear it now underneath everything. I don't know, it's like if you could get a tambourine with just two pieces of the metal, and that way you could mute them and just kind of get the little scraping sounds from them. I don't know, that's probably not what it is, but I'm curious what instrument that is now. Alright, very quiet singing, but there was also some scraping sounds. I don't know, it kind of sounded like running your nails down a fabric, but also at one time, just the sliding of a finger down guitar strings. chill track right here. Yeah, this sort of returns back to the earlier half of this album, focusing on pretty straightforward, minimalistic atmospheres. Another solid track, but one that doesn't quite grab me as much as a couple of the recent ones we've listened to. You know, though, I think that this would be good electronic music for people who enjoy post-rock. It's really about the vibe, the atmosphere, more than anything else. Sounds a little more esoteric. Now we're starting to add some ideas here. The sample of the wind or waves crashing with some sort of white noise. It's not the first time that field recordings have been used on here, but it is the first time I think it's really been a strong element of the atmosphere building. Most of the other times I hear it, it's more of a secondary component to the atmosphere. I certainly think this is the most static track we've listened to, and if it stays this way, it is going to be the most static track, because we haven't had anything that was just one idea, 4 minutes. This is also the longest track we've listened to since the album started. Oh, I take that back. There's actually been a couple of songs longer than this. Hasn't felt that way.
Dreams of better places decimate my view.
This is only the third song, I think, to have lyrics.
Of your embraces remind the world of you. Outside the world's opposing, attempting to decree with allies decomposing the future that could be.
It's another track that has a really quick dynamic shift. I think it's both pitch and volume on the sides, on the instruments on the sides here. Just kind of wavers. I don't like stuff like that. I don't think I knew that beforehand, but hearing it in two tracks here that have really agitated me, I just don't think that's a sound I enjoy. 3 vocal layers, harmonized. I can get behind that.
This way.
Interesting that it's kind of moving into a porcupine tree direction here. A slight detuning on that second chord. Oh, maybe it's a detuning on all of them, but it's only the low end reverberated parts. I enjoyed the end to that. It took a long time to get there, and maybe the build-up was worth it for some people, but for me, I don't know. Beautiful here. All right. Yeah, I think the Flashbulb is a really good name for this project. I can't, well, let me start from a different perspective here. This is the 7th album from the Flashbulb, and there are at least 10 more since then, with one that actually came out earlier this year in July. Yes, in July. If they're all like this, then this comment is going to make sense. If they're not, then maybe it only applies to this album. But I think the Flashbulb works really well to describe Arboreal. The idea of a light flashing up and illuminating a scene so that a camera can take a picture of it with all of the detail. That's how I view this album. It is shining a light on moments, ideas, feelings, landscapes, sonic landscapes. Each song hyper-focused on one specific idea. The song itself represents this concept, this idea, this emotion. It explores it a little bit and then moves on. Much as a flashbulb doesn't stay on for more than the blink of an eye. I think the songs all being on the shorter side and hyper-focused on intention of what to be showcased absolutely veers into that direction. Like I said, I don't know if the rest of their work aligns with this, but for this specific album, yeah, dude, the band name matches the art 100%. And I think that focusing on this emotionally is the best way to dig into that. There is a technical side to it, and we'll explore some of that in a moment, but for the most part, this is a feely sort of album. This is a turn the lights off, fall into a beanbag or a comfy chair and close your eyes and just soak it in. A lot of these tracks are on the more minimal side, only a few layers ever going on, not a lot of complexity. Most of those layers are going to be either a looped melody or chord or drone, some sort of foundational thing. It's not a super complex album, at least not from that perspective. But it is an album that is emotionally complex. Every track in here captures a different feeling, a different vibe. It's, as I mentioned earlier, quite incredible that an album can be this distinct from track to track and yet still feel cohesive. I don't think that there's any track in here that feels separate or distinct from the rest in a sense that I would think, I don't know if that should have been included in this collection. Every track works. Every track feels arboreal. I'm going to have to look that word up. I mean that in the sense that it all works in this album, though, and that it all feels like it is part of this album, an exploration of emotions. That's not super common. If you change up atmospheres, emotions, vibes, instruments, timbres, colorings, once you start doing that, you're going to create stuff that feels distinct. And at a certain point, you can create music that doesn't feel like it needs to be or should have been paired next to other music on an album. And yet that doesn't happen here despite the variety on display. On top of that, I find it really impressive that all of these vibes can be and were written presumably by a single person. There's a little bit of rock in here, hard rock, we can call that at the end. I don't think that there's anything metallic, but we did have a really gritty distorted guitar in that penultimate song. But we definitely have rock. We have ambient electronic. We have drum and bass electronic. We have indie rock. We have pop music. We have jazz. We have classical. There's a lot of influences in here in varying amounts of weights as well. I'll say that jazz certainly showed up less prominently than, say, indie rock or ambient electronic. But they're all here. This person is well versed in all of these different styles of music, and I find that to just on as a fact by itself, very cool. I love to hear people who have a wide palette, not just in what they listen to, but what they understand and what they can create. I find that people who only listen to one type of music and musicians who only create one type of music, they might be great at it, might be the best at it, but after a while, I find that to be a little boring. I like change. I like newness, exploration, growth. This person intrigues me. And this was 2010. What kind of music have they done since then? How much wider is their musical horizon today? There is the performative side to this too. While there is a lot of this album that feels programmed, again, I don't know if it is, but it certainly feels more in that direction. There's also some very clear cases of technical performative side of things. The drum work on here is consistently impressive and enthralling. I love too, as soon as I brought up the topic of the drums are cool, but probably programmed, and we get something very similar on an acoustic drum kit, which could technically still be programmed as well, but given that the requester had went out of their way to make sure that I knew that this person played all these instruments, I have to assume they were playing the drums there. In which case, they're a phenomenal drummer. Absolutely bonkers. So many little details, controls of dynamic, of rhythmic pulse and cadence, tossing in melodic qualities to the drum work. It is all over the place. And I absolutely love how controlled it is despite being so expressive. It isn't, or it rarely is anyways, just very straightforward beats. But then you also toss in that a lot of this is played on guitar, distorted and modified through synthesizers, but it's played on a guitar. These lines are impressive, and certainly when we get to hear some clean electric stuff and some acoustic stuff, I get to hear what I know 100% is person playing the guitar, and that's impressive at times too. There were 2 songs in here that I thought had really cool lead lines that really showed off a little bit of the chops of this person. And Ben. I gotta stop saying this person. I know their name is Ben. I'm gonna call him Ben. I hope that's fine, Ben, if you're watching this. I gotta stop saying that name. Really impressive though. Guitar work, drum work, the vocal stuff is all on point. Some of it does get modified. We did have pitch correction in one song, really heavy pitch correction for effect, but we also heard a more, or I should say, less modified vocal delivery on a couple of the songs around that one too. So yeah, I mean, this person, multi-talented instrumentalist here. And I'm totally on board with that. You know, like I had mentioned, usually when you hear somebody plays 5-6 instruments, you're thinking jack of all trades. They can keep a beat on the drums, they can play chords on a guitar, you know, they can do a simple walking bass line or maybe pedal tones on a bass guitar. But you don't typically think of virtuoso on every instrument. And yeah, this was pretty cool. I liked seeing this and hearing this. And I'm glad I was given that context too, because otherwise I might have just thought that this was a full band, given how talented every instrument comes across. Now this album though is a mixed bag. Part of that is due to the sheer variety, but part of it too, I think, is the compositional side of things. There is definitely an electronic heavy ambient side of this album. Focuses on just one idea, one drone, one simple loop and a beat, and calls it a day. Small variation to it across the runtime, but generally that's the track. But in the middle of the album, we started to explore more of a, almost like a progressive indie rock thing going on there, with some jazz and classical influences thrown in there. A lot of acoustic instrumentation. We had lead melody lines now rather than lead melody loops. And to me, this was the best part of the album. Incredibly expressive drums. And this is a thing too, because when I think of the drum and bass style drums or breakbeat, I'm still not entirely sure. I'm still, I haven't read comments yet because I haven't released the video yet. I'm still making it. Regardless though, those faster, more technical drum parts, even if they're not programmed, even if it's played on a drum kit and then triggered using MIDI triggers to turn into this, it's lacking variety in its sound. We do have a lot of different timbres going off, but we're kind of missing the sonic variability, particularly in the realm of volume dynamics. And that's something I really love about the acoustic drum kit, is just how much dynamics Ben can get into it. When you listen, there's a louder notes, there's quieter notes, there's a lot of use of very light cymbal work, of ghost notes on the snare. It is a constant display of mastery over control of this instrument to pull as many sounds out of it as possible. And it's those little touches, little nuances that really sell moments like this. And again, on the guitar, when we modify that with the synthesizer, does it sound cool? Absolutely. To see somebody play what looks like an acoustic guitar and have it sound like a synthesizer, that's always going to tickle my brain. That's a cool little thing that we can do these days, and technology is amazing, isn't it? But when he's playing the guitar as a guitar and you get to hear all those nuances, the little pickup notes, the little quiet palm muted ideas, and all of the little subtle elements to the performance, this is what really stands out to me. I'm not saying that none of these nuances could be achieved with a digitization or the electronic modification of these instruments. I mean, after all, once you kind of turn it into MIDI, you have vast control over all sorts of parameters. You can certainly add all this in, but he doesn't. And a lot of electronic artists don't. To me, it is one of the, I don't want to say it's exclusive to this style of music, but it is a defining quality of acoustic music, is typically dynamics. And I love how they're on display in these moments. And I think that the linear melodies and these nuances and being able to know without a shadow of doubt these instruments are being played and being able to visualize all that, these songs in the middle just really stand out to me. They click with me a lot more than the ambient electronic stuff, even though I have come to the understanding that there probably isn't much of a difference from his point of view. He's still playing the same instruments with similar styles. It's just coming out the speaker end totally different. But to me, it drastically alters my connectivity to these songs. I think that's going to wrap this up. I want to look at some lyrics real quick, although I'll be honest. I know there were some lyrics in one of the first 5 songs. I'm not going to remember the song that it's in. But I do know that the penultimate track there, the Porcupine Tree-esque song, had a lot of lyrics. I think it was the one with the most amount. If nothing else, I'd just like to check out that one, see what was going on there. Just for the sake of being as thorough as possible, because we typically check out lyrics with music. We just typically don't have 60 minutes worth of music to go back and listen to, or to figure out what the lyrical themes were. But I quite enjoyed this. It was a rocky start. Don't get me wrong. I thought this was going to be a tough listen for me, and to be honest, it did start off that way. But it quickly got on my good side. It is not something I think I'm going to go out of my way to listen to again. It's certainly too ambient and too minimal for my tastes, but credit where credit's due. Ben absolutely killed it with this. A fantastic display of musical knowledge and emotional knowledge, and crafting so many really strong emotional atmospheres. All right, track number 2 called Dragging Afloat, just has 5 lines. When I open my eyes, I can't see if I'm falling. I need you to catch me before I come crashing and dragging you down with me. Now, I vaguely remember track 2 being a bit on the up and up. I had likened it to track 1 with being a very optimistic, positive, warm electronic track. It's interesting to me that the lyrics are this way, a bit negative but positive. I mean, they're obviously in danger. They're falling. They need help from someone else to catch them. And they worry that if they're not caught, they'll not only crash themselves, but drag someone else down with them. It's a little bit of a hope for a better future while concern for the present, and having a little bit of that worry of the worst case scenario. In other words, this is just a song about being an adult. Always worrying about the worst and trying to make sure that things work out for the best. I might have to go back and listen to this track to see if there's any nuance to it, because I just, like I said, I remember it being fairly positive throughout. Lines Between Us was in the back half of the album somewhere. It just says, "This sky holds true, so gray, so blue. If I pull through, I will repay you." Very straightforward there. If I make it through this, I'll make sure that, you get what you're owed for helping me. Interesting, the 2 lyrics we've seen so far are about 2 people, and one helping the other. Now, as I mentioned, Skeleton, the penultimate track, felt like it had the most amount of lyrics, and it does. We have 16 lines here. That's certainly a lot for this album. "The dreams of better places decimate my view. The weight of your embraces remind the world of you. Outside the world's opposing, attempting to decree with allies decomposing the future that could be." I think this is really interesting because it talks about how singular people can alter the course of things, not for good. It can create a weight. It can create a sorrow. The remembrance itself can be heavy. It can also decompose the future to make the plans, or for the plans that we have to make a worse future ahead of us. It says, "I've let the dream escape, a sunken mass of things erased, a list of names to leave behind, a wound to heal that all creates. The message failed to translate, the answers failing to convey the fiery truth and reason why the world I live in ends this way." It seems to be a breaking down of communication and how that leads to inevitable collapse. But honestly, it's a bit vaguer than I would like. The song's called Skeletons, and while it does have a heavy ending, which I think works well with the idea of their world ending, I'm not sure that the first half of the track really carries too much of this fear for the future, and this feeling of having failed in it. Which I think is really interesting when so much of the music is emotionally accomplished, having crafted these sounds and tones and atmospheres that to me are very vivid, capturing these emotions strongly, and the lyrics don't seem to go in the way that I feel these songs. For something that's so emotionally resonant, the lyrics don't seem to resonate emotionally with the music, at least from my perspective, which of course is subjective. What I got out of these songs might not have been the authorial intent, but it is what these sounds said to me. And I guess that's a good place to wrap all of this up. These are my thoughts on the Flashbulb's Arboreal. What did you think of this album? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on any of this? Please let me know. Put those thoughts and anything else you'd like to add down into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.